TiE I take pleasure in inviting Miss Anat. Her achievements are many, so I'm going to first introduce her professional life. She's co-founded and is the managing director of ANG Partner. She's also the chairperson of Israel, India, Sri Lanka and Nepal Chamber of Commerce, Vice President, Israel, India Chamber of Commerce. She's also the executive committee member of the Binational Chambers Commerce Committee. She's also the president of TiE Israel. Anat is an investment banker and business development specialist for emerging markets, co-founder and managing director of the Israel office of ANG Partners, which was founded in 2002. It is a group operating on the axis of Israel, India and Sri Lanka in various sectors, including Agritech via the Agribator Technology Center in Noida, the real estate projects in Mysore and Sri Lanka, innovation consulting, investment banking, technology transfer and entertainment. She works with the Auditorium Group Innovation Office and Corporate Strategy to connect Israeli technologies and opportunities with the group. ANG was the Israeli host of Gyan Milan, the Israel-India Technology Forum, bringing leading CIOs from India to learn of the first hand of the Israeli innovation. Anat is frequent speaker about doing business in India and a commentator about India in the Israeli media, a columnist about India business in the Israeli magazine, The Marker, and The Hash, Israel's leading newspaper digital blog. She served as a consultant and reviewer to the India-China Fund of the Israeli Ministry of Economy. She managed the first Israel-India Innovation Bridge program in the year 2018 that was initiated by the Prime Minister Netanyahu and Prime Minister Modi. Was awarded an iconic Woman Award by the WEF, Women Economic Forum 2016. She was also awarded by SP Mandali's V School, Friend of India 2020 for her economic contribution to India. She served as the executive producer of the Bharati show, The Wonder That Is India, and Bharati 2, mega shows with 70 artists from India on stage, who performed 2005 to 2018 and were viewed by over 4 million people worldwide. She served as a consultant to the World Bank in Washington for economic development projects, including the Internet Economic Toolkit for African policymakers and the Cyberpark and Technology Incubator of Santo Domingo. She is a member of 7 official business delegates to India, including President Bill Clinton 2000, President Roman Rivlin 2016, PM Netanyahu 2018. She headed Israeli business delegations to Sri Lanka in 2010 and 2013. She co-founded several startup companies in Boston and Santa Clara and in Israel, and worked with the Israeli technology incubators to promote strategic partnerships between Israeli and American technology companies in the Silicon Valley. She is an advocate by qualification and faculty of law at the Tel Aviv University and is a member of the Israeli bar. She also holds an MBA in finance and international business from the University of San Francisco. So with that, I introduce today's speaker, Ms. Anat, and I was just talking to her before we walked here. She travels to India once in 6 weeks, so this is your time to find out how to set up your business in Israel. Over to you.
I got tired by just listening to everything you said. So thanks for hosting me today. It's really an honor to be with TiE Chena. Wherever I go in the world, I'm trying to connect to the local TiE because I really feel at home. I know TiE since, 1998 actually, even before, 97, when I moved to the Silicon Valley, and that's when TiE started. So I remember the first TiECon events, and I looked yesterday, TiE have created a clip about the history of TiE. And I look at the people that I know today, which are the legends of TiE, and suddenly I see them in the early days and say, wow, they've been so young. So much have happened since, so it's really, try to look at those, this clip of TiE. How many are you of members of TiE? Okay, so almost all of you. So you know what I'm talking about, and you feel good. So we're... the TiE in Israel is actually a very small chapter that we started a few years back just to connect the ecosystem in Israel to the network globally. But in Israel, they don't need us as to foster innovation or to foster entrepreneurship, because it's in the blood, it's in the water. We're not there for that. We're not there for that. We are there to connect the TiE communities. We host TiE chapters that come to Israel. I just spoke this morning with Akila that we want to organize a TiE delegation from Chennai to Israel. Please register and come. And we want to have this exchange between the entrepreneur ecosystem here, mentoring. There are a lot of Israeli mentors, and if you want mentors from Israel, I'll be happy to do the connection. And that's why we are here, to bridge. So again, thanks for coming. I have 1 hour. I can talk for days. So I'll try to be short. I'll just give you a teaser into my country, although I feel also Indians. So wherever I'm in India, I'm totally at home. And of course, I was born, raised in Israel. Some background about myself, although Aparna gave you the full history, but still how I came to India, actually. So when I finished my law school, of course I was a paralegal, and then we had to move to the US. My husband was supposed to do his postdoc. He's a scientist. And I said, okay, of course I'm going to enjoy myself in the Silicon Valley, but maybe I can do a bit more. And I said, maybe I'll go and get the California bar. And then a friend told me, why don't you do an MBA? That's much more interesting. And I was always numbers person. I mean, when I registered to law, my second option was mathematics. So I said, okay, I'll go for my MBA in finance. I went and studied in USF, in the University of San Francisco. And during my studies, I had a wonderful professor that told us that once we finish our studies, we can always be a CFO of a startup. And that was kind of the driver to later. When I finished my studies, I circulated my resume in my kids' kindergarten. And it reached some Indian that moved to Silicon Valley, and he worked in Apple computers. And he had an idea to build networks, and I'm talking about end of 97, 98, to build a network between US and India and give connectivity. Now, let me remind you that I'm a lawyer. I knew something about numbers from my MBA. I had no clue what is router and all those, what is megabyte, megabyte, all those telecom jargon. I had no clue. But I met this nice guy. Initially, I spoke to him and he did this. And I said, Anil, why not? Why not? And he said, oh, yeah, sorry. So that was my first interaction with India and with Indians. And Anil and his family became my family. Anil Shrivastava was the first head of NASCOM in the early days. And that's where everything started. We built Across World Communications. It was a startup. We got funding from Indians that live in the US, Indians in Australia, Indians in India. We built network here in India. We collaborated with CMC, at that time a DoD enterprise, and the rest is history. In the bubble of October 2000, our company collapsed because we were about to get some more investment, but it didn't come. I went back to Israel, and I said, okay, do I want to be a lawyer? I said, no, it's a bit boring. And I realized that by now I understand India. Of course, at that time I was naive, because at that time I understood really little about India, but I said, let me focus on India. I started A&G Partners, which is my holding company, and I started to assist Israeli companies come to India, and opportunity brought opportunity. And here I am speaking to you after almost 22 years of traveling back and forth to India. One day a person meets me and says, oh, of course you are coming to India, you've been Indian in your previous life, you just want to come back. So I guess it's true in one way. So why Israel and how to work with Israelis? You can play the... no, not the movie. My presentation, sorry. Yeah, can you... So, quickly about Israel. During my army service, I had a fascinating job. I was a tour guide. There is such a role in the Israeli army. You are a tour guide. And your role is to take soldiers to trips in the country with the understanding when someone knows his land, he will love his land and protect his land. And that's why the Israeli army has tour guides, or as we call it, education officer, but that was actually a tour guide. So the good thing that the first 3 months in my army service, and that happened when I was 18, I learned and I traveled, and that's what I did through my army service. The point is that once you're a tour guide, you're always a tour guide. So if you'll come to Israel, I promise to be your tour guide. That's what happens till date. Whenever I have guests, I tell them, you can take a professional tour guide, but let me show you. And it works. So this is Israel. It can look, it depends, it's a really tiny country. It's a really tiny country in a sense that if you travel from the Mediterranean to Jerusalem, it's 40 minutes, okay? And double it to the other side, an hour and a half tops, okay? So you can do the calculation. Tel Aviv is not the capital is of course Jerusalem, but I would say that Tel Aviv is like New York, like Bombay, the capital of business. Jerusalem is the capital of diplomats and governments. You have Haifa in the north, you have Eilat in the south, you have the Dead Sea, the lowest place on earth, minus 400 meters. You have the Golan Heights, you have Syria as our friend, in brackets. You have Lebanon up north. You have Jordan, which we have peace treaty, and actually recently we decided to start selling gas to Jordan, which is important also for diplomatic relations. And we have in the south Egypt, which we have a peace treaty, but not enough business relations and not enough tourism relations, but still, even a cold peace is a good peace. And we have a tiny border with Saudi Arabia here in the south. So we are really surrounded by friends, and we have the Mediterranean. 9 million people, 2/3 of the country is the desert. Okay? This is the line of the desert, I would say. Like that. This is total desert, which you wouldn't know that it's a desert when you go to the main cities here and to the villages. But that's, if you are a geography major, you will understand that that's a desert. 9 million people, GDP of 390, growth rate not as good as India, but still not bad. Unemployment low and inflation hardly there. Not bad of economy, and on Monday we have elections where Mr. Netanyahu will show you that we have a good economy. what is our society? Or the Israelis that make a lot of noise in the media, and sometimes the media is not favoring Israel, unfortunately. So, who are we? We're full of conflicts. We have a very difficult society of 9 million people. First, we have the conflict between religious people and secular people. And it goes into the government. We have in the government religious parties that want our nation to be religious. Religious meaning that they don't want a public transportation in Shabbat. Shabbat is Saturday. This is the holy day for the Jews. They don't want shops to be open on Saturday. Now, the secular people like me, I'm happy to do shopping on Shabbat. That's my free day. When will I go shopping? So there is a friction. There are neighborhoods which are very religious, and they just block themselves on Saturday and not allowing cars to go in, because for them, Shabbat, Saturday, is a day that you're not supposed to do anything but to relax and pray to God. Now, as a secular person, I'm saying live and let live, right? Don't enforce your rules on me. So this is a big conflict that governments go down because of those conflicts. They fight on such rules all the time. Jews versus Arabs. In Israel we have 75% population of Jews. We have 15% population, not more a bit, population Arabs, some Christians, some Druze, some others. Jews are, of course, majority, and this is the only state in the world for Jews. There's no other state. Actually, the state, as Israel started after the Holocaust in East Europe. Sabras versus immigrants. I'm a Sabra. I was born in Israel. Sabra is the fruit that has, how do you call it? Which is very prickly in the outside and very sweet in the inside. That's what they call the Israelis, which are prickly in the outside. No, it was not jackfruit. Prickly on the outside in the sense that we are like stinks, but we're very soft inside. Versus immigrants. Now, Israel is built on immigration, okay? The nation started in 48, only a few months after India we got our independence from the British Raj. And when the state started, it was only a few Jews or Israelis in the state. Gradually, Jews came from all over the world. From East Europe, people after the Holocaust, the survivors came. And then there were people from North Africa coming, from Morocco, Algeria, Tunisia, Egypt, Jews communities came. From India in the 50s and 60s, the community of Bnei Israel, of the Baghdadi Jews and the Bengali Jews migrated to Israel. In the 90s, we had from year 91 onwards, 1 million Jews from Russia, from USSR, migrated to Israel. In when was it? In 92, we started to have immigration from Ethiopia, of Ethiopian Jews that were from Jewish origin, also came to Israel. In the last years, when there is anti-Semitism attacks in France and in Europe, Jews from France are migrating to Israel. So this is a country that allows Jews to come and settle and to become citizens. So, but it creates friction, because when they are immigrating to Israel, they get special rights. And the Sabras that pay taxes say, okay, I'm paying taxes for this person to come and get special privilege. But maybe I forget that my grandpa, when he came from Europe, he also got those rights, and so on. So there is a friction, but we all understand that this is power. More people in Israel is power, and I'll show you how. Then we have the friction between the center, the state of Tel Aviv, as we call it. We call it the city of 24 hours. Very much happening, a lot of culture, restaurants, exciting city, and I'm sure that you will come after my talk, versus the periphery. The periphery is suffering from lack of resources, government investment. Periphery, if I'm talking to the north and the south, suffer also from some militant attacks, whether it's in the south, from the Gaza Strip. There are missiles all the time coming on Israel, and maybe you don't hear it here, but there are Saturdays that I'm waking up to a siren, and I can laugh now, but it's really annoying. On a Saturday when I'm planning to oversleep, suddenly there is a siren, and it became a routine. And I can stand here and laugh with you about it, but it's not funny. It's not funny because in the areas, in the cities which are really close to the border, it's very frequent, and kids really suffer. So the periphery says, you in Tel Aviv enjoy good life, but we are actually preserving the borders by physically being there. Because it's very easy to move to Tel Aviv, but they are protecting the country by really living in those villages and cities in the periphery. And so on. We don't have social castes in India. We're a flat society, overly flat, I would say. The army is the melting pot. When we are 18, it's mandatory to go to the army. For a woman for 2 years, a man for 3 years. No excuses unless you have a special physical disability. And in this case, you also can serve in hospitals, schools, etc. You need to serve your country. And it's beautiful, because when you're 18, you go out of your home, you go into military training, you have to deal with people, you have to be out of home, and it makes you strong, it makes you resilient. You learn to operate very sophisticated devices. You become a leader, you go to officers class, some of us, and this is definitely a driver, one of the drivers for Israel being a startup nation, because you have to stand for yourself. The external factors, of course, is the constant threat, and I showed you the map, okay? I told you about the missiles. It's there. Sometimes there is an Air Force base next to my house. And when I hear the airplanes at night, I understand that something is happening. And it's not good for our neighbors, and it's not good for us. Another motivation is the survival mode. The survival mode post the Holocaust, people came here with nothing. I'll give you my grandparents, and through my personal story you learn about everyone in Israel. Here you ask someone, where are you from? Like Aparna, for example. I asked her, where are you from? She says, I'm from Delhi. So I told you, you're a Delhi Wali? And she said, no, the family is from Chennai, okay? So you go by 2-3 generations back. That's how you portray yourself. So I have 4 grandparents. One came from Latvia, from Riga. Another one came from Moldova, which at that time was Romania, Poland. One came from Poland, and one came from Lithuania. All of them came from East Europe. And they came before the war, before World War II. And each of my friends have a different story. Okay, my husband's father was from Hungary. He was in a concentration camp during the Holocaust, and he, via Sweden, came to Israel post the war. And everyone that you'll talk in Israel have a fascinating story about how his family came to Israel. But they came to Israel with nothing. My grandpa, which came from Riga, came on a boat. He didn't bring even a suitcase. He jumped from the boat with his bathing suit and swam to the shore with nothing. And so were my other, maybe my grandma brought a suitcase, but they came with nothing. They had to build everything from scratch. And when I talk to Indians, I'm sure that it reminds you of the partition and the many people that left everything and migrated to India. So our country started in a survival mode. And with the memory of the Holocaust, that 6 million people died in the Jews died in the Holocaust, and many other nations as well. We're still small. I need to tell you that the growth rate, the population growth rate in Israel is bigger than India. We're above 2% growth, but still, when it's 9 million, India every year grows by 2 Israels. That's my comparison. And because we are that small, we must export. I had an interview just now and they asked me, should Indian startups come to Israel? I said, definitely come for R&D collaboration, but don't come for the market. We are not a market. Focus here on this neighborhood in Chennai and you'll have more people. You have to come for the collaboration, for the interaction, but not come for the market. And so are the startups. Many of the companies in Israel, when they think about a product, they are designing it for other markets, whether it's the US, Europe. I'm trying to tell them, look east, look to China, look to India. That's the future markets. And there are companies now that from inception, they look what India is looking for. What product I can do that will sell in India. So this is a major factor to how the innovation in Israel works. Where I'm going to sell it. Israel is just the beta. You have a product, you try it on local companies, but you are not going to really grow when you're selling to 9 million people. And we are an island economy. We have to ship everything via airplane or ships. Our neighbors don't buy from us. They buy gas now, true, but the trade with our neighbors, maybe Gaza sends us missiles, so there is kind of export of stuff, but that's unfortunately all. So everything has to be shipped. That's why the IT business is beautiful, because we ride on the internet to send stuff. We don't need to sell physical goods because it adds to the cost. There was a time there was a train going up Syria, Turkey, which could go to Europe. During the Brits, we had train system, like they built train system in India, same in Israel. Unfortunately, Lebanon doesn't allow us to go up north, but it's option for one day. Here is my island, you see? The yellow island. It looks like the Maldives, isn't it? Almost. So why we call it the Startup Nation? There is a nice book that was issued a few years back called The Startup Nation that tells the story how the ecosystem started. If you come across this book, read it. It's nice. So let's talk about the environment. Highest VC investment per capita. Most scientists and engineers in the workforce. Per 10,000 people. Highest R&D. Fourth in patents granted and Nasdaq traded company. Third after US and China. I'll skip that. Names that you would know, I guess. ICQ, the first instant messaging, was an Israeli company. Vocaltech, voice over IP, whatever is obvious to us now, started with Vocaltech. Checkpoint, the cybersecurity company, now it's a standard. Sandix, disk on key that you're using for my presentation, was started in Israel by Sandisk. Teva Pharmaceutical, a lot of drugs are of Teva. Netafim, the drip irrigation, the first drip irrigation in the world. It's all over India now, manufactured here in Chennai is Netafim, and Amdocs for telephony. We have over 7,000 startups, companies in IT, and 400 new startups every year. Now, maybe it's not big enough for India, but think about the population and do the calculation. Over 50 companies traded in Nasdaq, and Australia is now very popular for Israeli companies. I'm waiting for the first Israeli company to come to the Bombay Stock Exchange. That will be definitely an achievement. R&D, multinationals are setting shop in Israel in all aspects, from e-mobility to IT to pharma. You can see Infosys and Wipro and TCS and many other Asian, and even Tata and Tech Mahindra are all in Israel. I'll glance through the major deals of the recent years that are interesting for you. Cisco and Intel are very active in Israel, like they are probably here. Mobileye, the autonomous car, was acquired by Intel. I'm trying to think if there are any relevant. SodaStream was acquired by PepsiCo. SodaStream is the soda device. I don't know if you have it in India already. I haven't seen it here. That's an idea for business. Think about it. A very interesting company is Waze. You are all using it, you just don't know it. Waze was acquired by Google. So your Google Maps is actually Israeli technology. And I'm using Waze as a way of living. And in Israel it works to the minute. And now that I'm using Google Maps in India, I see that there is absorption here because it is really almost to the minute. And in India it's definitely a challenge, much more than Israel. My game is always to beat Waze, in the sense that Waze tells me you'll get there at 4 o'clock. I'm saying, okay, how can I get quicker than 4 o'clock? Sometimes I succeed. So, coming to the history, as I mentioned, those years were the special years for the startup ecosystem. Because in those years, we had huge immigration from Russia. December 91, and even before that, USSR collapsed. And hundreds, thousands of Jews migrated to Israel. Now, the state of Israel had nothing to do with them. They had to provide them work, and those were educated people, doctors, professors, scientists, quality people with a lot of knowledge. And the country said, okay, what are we going to do? And the country started and built incubators, technology incubators in the periphery, not in Tel Aviv and Jerusalem where everyone wants to live. Many incubators were built. Money was channeled to those incubators. First, it provided, of course, employment, but again, suddenly, the startups started. So immigration contributed to the startup ecosystem. I worked with, for example, an incubator down just here in Ofakim, for example. And there were incubators all around but for Tel Aviv initially. Later, the incubator started to be in every university, in every big company. Intel have an incubator, Microsoft, and so on. But the first incubator were government sponsored, which really made a difference. Then the military services I talked about. My son is now 18, was recruited to the army in September. And he went for a cybersecurity course, and he's now in the cybersecurity of the army. You can understand where he's going. He's not going to be a lawyer, I guess. Although he can be not bad. But definitely he will stay in the IT business. So the army is the jump, the springboard to go into the IT. There are a lot of funding by the Innovation Authority and by the government. Even if you have a small idea, you'll get some money for the government. And when you're growing, you'll get funding for pilots. And now with India, for example, there is a very special program called I4F, Israel-India Industrial Investment Fund, something like that, which is managed by our Innovation Authority, and GITA, which is the global innovation and technology managed by CII. And they invest in joint collaborations between Israel and India. You can use this money to collaborate and be happy to help you. And many more investments are happening in this through the Innovation Authority. When we talk about academia-industry relation, in every university there is a TTO, the Technology Transfer Office, which takes innovation from the university, commercialize it, sell patents, and get royalties. A lot of money Israeli universities are getting from their patents. It doesn't stay in the laboratory, it doesn't stay in some magazine of Nature or Cell or those fancy magazines. The TTO comes to the researchers and say, okay, how can I use your patent? How, and it can be applicable. The ATM that you're using, the coding is actually a patent by a professor in the Weizmann Institute. Okay? Many medicine that you're using are patents from the Israeli academia. So it doesn't stay on the shelves, it doesn't stay in the university, it goes to commercialize. And this is a major factor for our ecosystem. Another thing is the military-industry relations. And I'll give you one example. The pill cam. The pill cam is a small camera that instead of doing colonoscopy, you can swallow it and your doctor will see what is the situation inside. Now, this started in the army. This small, and you can see the size, this small camera was actually developed for a missile. And the scientists that worked in the missile program said, this mini camera can be also applicable for medical use. And he started this company. It's now traded in Nasdaq and actually acquired by other company. But he took it from the military and commercializes to civilian applications. And there are many other ideas like that. So the advanced R&D in the military itself is another driver for success. Talking about Israel and India, and then I'll go to, how much time do I have? Okay, so I'm fine. In '92, Israel and India became friends again. We renewed our diplomatic relations. Over the years, a lot of visits. Sushma Swaraj came to dinner at my house. And then she became the minister, and then I always brag that I fed her with her strict veg food. And our president hosted your president There is a funny story that I say. We were invited to his talk in the Israeli parliament, which is called Knesset. And Mr. Mukherjee is Bengali. So he gave a very nice talk in the Knesset, and he said, we Indians love Hamas. Okay? You know what is the Hamas? Hamas is the terrorist group in Gaza. And we, the business community, kind of sat in the upper level of the Knesset, and everybody was shocked. And the members of Knesset were shocked. How come you say we love Hamas? And suddenly people started to laugh, because he wanted to say hummus. And of course, hummus is different from Hamas. So everybody laughed, and it was okay, but I always remember this for to Mukherjee. Kamal Nat, when he was the Minister of Commerce or so, came to Israel, or Energy when he was. And so a lot of good relations between our countries. This is one of the delegation. We went to Netafim factory in Baroda, the first Netafim factory actually before Chennai. Many business delegations coming back and forth all those years, and then they met. The love story. In September 2016, they met in New York, in the sidelines of the UN, and they became the best friends. He invited him to meet the parents, he invited him to meet the parents. This is in the Caesarea beach. They went together into the water, really a love story. I met him in 2006 when he was the Chief Minister of Gujarat. He came for the Agritech conference, and I had some quality time with him at that time. So I'm happy to know him before he was the Prime Minister. Talking about businesses, so as I mentioned, Tech Mahindra is in Israel, and TCS got very nice contracts from the Israeli banks recently, and actually the backbone of few of the largest banks are managed by TCS. Tata invests in venture capital in Israel, and so is Infosys. Infosys also acquired a few companies and actually starting to have their R&D center, and so is Wipro. From the Israeli side, Amdocs and Magic are in Pune, Ceragon in Delhi, Ness was in Bangalore, Hyderabad, Click Software in Delhi, but they were acquired recently. Converse is here in India. Next to my office, I'm saying that in our complex there is an Indian karma, because the State Bank of India just opened a branch. I had a lunch today with the first CEO of the Indian SBI branch, which retired and is now in Chennai. Nandan is a subsidiary, a full subsidiary of Jain Irrigation, which takes the R&D in Israel and actually spread it all over the world via the Jain brand. From pharmaceutical, you have Sun Pharma, which acquired Taro. And the interesting thing that the chairman of Sun is now actually a former chairman of Teva, the Israeli pharma company. From agriculture, we have Chuliot, which is building pipes, the Israeli one, Rivolis, which was bought by the Induja family, Finolex that teamed up with other Israeli, a lot of work in the water space. Here is the inauguration of one of Netafim's plant in Gujarat. Israel opened over 20 centers of excellence in agriculture in the past few years, including here in Tamil Nadu. From entertainment, Aparna mentioned my show, the Bharti show, that was staged for 13 years with wonderful dancers from India, including from Chennai. and there is a lot of exchange of entertainment between our two countries. As I mentioned last year, in September, we initiated the first Israel-India Business Women Forum with flow of FICCI. We hosted a huge delegation of business women of flow, and we are now taking it to the next level. So why should we need to work together? So of course, this slide is an old slide. Unfortunately, I have to change it tonight. India, in addition to being a huge market, you're actually our gate to the Arab countries. We cannot do it ourselves. We don't have access. I mean, the most I can go is go with Qatar Airways, land in Doha and continue, but I cannot go out. India can do it. You have great access to the Gulf countries. They are your trade partners, and Israeli needs you for that. And Israeli companies should land here, do value addition, do integration, work with India, and put a made in India and ship it to the Gulf countries. It's an untapped market that India can play a major role going there. There are synergies in skills, whether it's IT, biotech, and defense. And of course, from diplomatic angle, India is very important because you are friends with all the Arab countries. You're a friend also with Iran that we don't speak with. And India can be also the diplomatic bridge. And I think that Modi, once he finishes all his big plans for India, he can also help Israel to talk with our neighbors. And we need, I'm serious now, we need a player beyond the US, beyond Europe, that understands the culture of the Arab countries and can bring us together and bring peace to the craziness of our region. The base for our good relations, and I feel at home here, and you'll feel at home in Israel too, I promise you. We face the same problems. We have a lot of similarities. The brain drain. All the smart IT guys that go to the Silicon Valley and enjoy the good life with Costco, Target, and so on. They also leave Israel, and many of them stay. It's only my mother-in-law that forced us to come back. Otherwise, I would stay also, of course. We have also water scarcity, especially here in Chennai, of what happened here. Same in Israel. We do a lot of desalination, but still, water is an issue. The dollar, rupee, shekel relations, another similarity. Even the coins are almost the same. And no, I'm kidding, because it goes to the Brits. That was a currency that I found in my drawer. I have no clue where I got it. But suddenly next to it was an Indian 10 peso. And I said, wow, it's from the same British factory or somewhere. So even in currency, we are similar. Talking about similarities, at the same time, there was unrest, social unrest. When Anna Hazare went and make his strike here, this young lady in Tel Aviv, in the main street, went on a protest against the government, against the cost of living, against corruption, same time. The interesting thing is that from Anna Hazare, we have the Admi party. From her movement, we have the Blue and White party, which is now competing with the Likud party. It came on the same time. Two social movements that grew from the protest against the existing situation. And we also enjoy the corruption part. Okay, I see her all over the street here. So this was our Prime Minister, Olmert. He was just released from prison for some corruption issue. Those two cousins, he used to be the head of the largest conglomerate in Israel, and that's his cousin, the chairman of the largest banks. Both spent some time in jail recently. Actually, he was released last week, and I think this guy is still in jail. So we share, so we share same issues as well. I'm happy that corruptions bring us together. We face the same issues of terrorism. I don't need to tell you about Bombay, but I'll tell you a story about Bombay. That in November, 26 November morning, it was a Wednesday, I write for the Israeli magazine Stories. It's a monthly. So I was supposed to hand my story for the December edition, and I decided to write about terrorism in India. And the editor sent me the story for review before it goes to printing. And kind of I left it on my kitchen table. I made some marks of commas and other words that were misspelled. I was about to send it to her. And my father came to the kitchen. Not that he lives with us, we don't live in joint family, but my father was there. And he read the story, he said, wow, interesting that there is terrorism in India, no one talks about it. And I said, yes, there is terrorism in India. And I sent the story to the editor, and that evening the attack in Bombay happened. And the following day, the editor calls me and said, Anat, how did you know? I said, of course I didn't know, but it was there. I mean, if you look at what happened the month before, there were events. And then my father asked me, how did you know? And now when the story was published in December 1st, everybody was sure that I wrote it after the attack. But I wrote it before the attack. So we have similarities. I mean, this is a bus next to my, I think it's next to my grandparents' house. So we have similar concerns. Social justice and corruption and terrorism and the water issues and the brain drain and the energy cost and more. But we have a lot, and we have also very strong cultural fit. If we look at our family values, that's an Indian typical family, that's my family, okay? Me and my siblings and their kids and my parents, and we're very connected. Relations are important to us. I'm telling you, Israelis, when you want to do business with Indians, you do business with a person. You don't do business to business. I decided to change the name of B2B sessions to P2P because it's about people. So relations are important for us. We're very warm people. I'm telling you, you will feel at home in Israel. Also, both of us are very resilient. We improvise. You call it jugad, we call it just improvise. But it comes from scarcity of resources in the essence of our nations. You have the NRI, the non-reliable Indians. We have our non-reliable Israelis. Education is extremely important for us. My grandma wanted me to be a doctor. I became a lawyer. But none of my siblings became doctors, but still, education is extremely important to all of us. None of us, oh, my son is engineer, good. At least one engineer in the family. We are very IT focused. So this is the good part. The difficult part, we are different. And in order to enjoy the similarities that we have to appreciate the differences. And that will be the last part of my talk. And give me, before 5 minutes, tell me that I have 5 minutes. So I have 5 minutes?
No, you haven't.
Oh, I'm lucky. So when you ask Israeli, when he wants something, you know what he would tell you? Who said that? You're Israeli. And Israeli, we're a bit crazy. We want everything yesterday. Not now, not tomorrow. It's very typical. and it's a joke, but it's also true. So when an Israeli talk, no, let's do, when Indian talk, this is how a dialogue will look, right? One talks, then normal, someone is thinking, there is silence. So this is normal. When Israeli talks, I think that it moved, that's the way it is. We don't listen. You talk, I talk, so you understand the problem? There is a mismatch, an awful mismatch. When we negotiate, it's really interesting. And I've been to many negotiations between India and Israel. The Indian talk, and then there is silence. Now the Israeli get irritated. Why he is silent? He's not happy. Something happened. He's upset with me. And then he improves on his offering. And the Indian continues to be silent. And the Israeli improves even better. And when I'm sitting in the room, I'm kind of doing that to them, because shut up. But they are not comfortable with silence. And this is a great thing that Indians do. I'm trying to teach Israelis to shut up, to be silent. They just can't do it. So this is something definitely to learn from Indians, to use the silence as a tool in negotiation. And I'm telling you, I'm doing it as well. Hierarchy. I guess that this is India and another 28 layers below. In Israel, we will be around here, tops. But easy for this guy to talk to this guy, and so on. I hosted one of the big Indian conglomerates in Israel, and we walked in one very big factory in the defense, of a defense company, and we walked with the CEO of the company, and everybody came to him, say, hi, how are you doing, happy holidays, blah, blah, blah. And the Indian looked at him and said, everybody talks to you? And he said, yes, of course. I said, wow, when I'm going in my factory in India, everybody runs away. So the point is that this is a driver for innovation, because when the junior can talk to senior freely, that's the flow of knowledge. Okay? Sometimes good ideas are stuck in the lower level, which is afraid to go up. The fear of failure, the fear of being stupid. When you have a flat organization, it's easier to get decisions, it's easier to tell them your opinion, new ideas. No one will laugh at you, and he is accessible. That's important for organization. The notion of time is totally different. As I said, we want something yesterday. I'm teaching Israelis my dictionary. I'm telling them when Indian tells you tomorrow, he means not today. It can be tomorrow, that's nice. But most of the time it will be in few days, right? I'm also doing it. That's the problem. I learned a lot from Indians. However, I'm telling it not to criticize Indians, but to tell Israelis to understand what does it mean. When you're being told tomorrow, punch minutes. I speak only Hindi. I never learned Tamil. Tomorrow means in few days, so plan accordingly. Don't take literally the word tomorrow. Another interesting word is challenge. When an Israeli tells you challenge, he means it's possible. He will do it. And when Indian says challenge, he means not possible. Now think about Indians and Israeli talk, right? An Indian says it's a challenge, so the Israeli says, okay, it's a challenge, but definitely you'll do it for me. And when the Indian asked the Israelis, can you do it? They said, yes, it's a challenge. Indian said, okay, you can't do it. Unless I educate them, nothing happens. So, or 6 months, the beauty of 6 months. I'm telling Israeli, when India tells you, let's talk in 6 months, it's the polite way of saying, forget about it. Right? Now, the Israelis take it literally. When we did the Barty show, we met a very famous producer here, I will not mention his name, and he told us, let's talk in 6 months. So my co-producer said, okay, let's talk to him in 6 months. I told him, his name was Gashash, forget about it. And he says, why? I said, it's 6 months. I said, that's the polite way. However, only yesterday I met a German guy, and I gave this talk to German delegation yesterday, and he said, you know what, Anat? Recently I told an Indian, let's talk in 6 months. And I'm sure now that he realized, I really meant it in 6 months, because this quarter I cannot talk to him, but I want to talk to him. And I said, in 6 months, I said, he probably misunderstood you. So, mind that some words are not the same in our cultures. So the Israeli businessman is very direct. I'm sitting into a negotiation between Israelis and Indians, and the Indian client tells me, what did they mean? I said, they said what they mean. No, what did they mean? What is the subtext? I'm saying there is no subtext. Whatever they said, they mean. We in India always have a subtext. There is always something behind it, right? The Israeli, we are very straight, we are direct, we'll tell you to the face. We will also give you the best price very quickly. Whereas Indians will negotiate and negotiate. In my initial negotiation, I'm talking so many years back, I cried at the end of the week because they drove me crazy. I mean, every day they reopened the negotiation and they brought someone else for the organization, and it was too much for me. I was really young at that time. Today I understand that it's a process, but the Israelis, when they're new to the process, it drives them mad. And so they will give you the best price very quickly. And the Indians don't believe, it can't be. So early they give a best price. It can't be. And I'm telling Indians, yes, that's probably their best price because they want to do business. They don't want to negotiate. Unlike Indians that create relations during the negotiation process, Israelis will be your friend after that. They'll sign the agreement with you, they'll be your friend. But let's do business, we're wasting time. So those are two very different, distant cultures when it has to do with time. I think that I can talk on, and I have a lot of jokes. Now that I'm half Indian, I can joke with you about India. I'm open to questions if you have. Yes. What's your name?
My name is Raj. So the question I have is, you mentioned earlier that Israel is a mix of people from so many different cultures, continents. And now you talk about an Israeli culture.
Right.
How does somebody imbibe the Israeli culture from having come from different parts of the world?
Okay, so I'll explain to you two things. One, the education in Israel is public. Okay? We have same opportunity, same education. People don't go to private schools. That's one thing. So the education system is good. Second thing, and I mentioned to you, the army service. Okay? When I reach the army service, I'm equal. My commander in the army can be a guy from underprivileged background with very poor family, but the army gives him equal opportunity. And that's what we call the melting pot. That's what creates the Israeli culture. We speak the same slang, we have the same experiences, we are, no matter from where we are in our tiny nation, we are together in the camp together. This is the beauty of this nation, because we become really equal. Yes? Kiat Kename? Sunil.
Israel startup capital at Torino's. You also know that IIT Research Park is probably the hub of high-tech research. What are are a couple of significant things we can do
To get there. I think that you're on the way first. When I compare the startup ecosystem 20 years ago to what India is now offering, it's amazing. I mean, all the incubators, the accelerators that I see, Startup India, the angel communities. I saw the office of Chennai Angels. I work with the Indian Angels in Delhi. You're creating the ecosystem, the venture capital. I think that also the big companies should be less conservative, okay? Innovation is still, in many companies, only a slogan. We are innovating company. When I'm coming to offer them a product, then there is a question. Okay, where does your product work? I said, it works in Israel, it works in Costco in California, it works in some good companies. No. Nowhere it works in the world, where it works in India. Okay? So in order to innovate, you have to be less risk averse. You need to try more things. And that's a matter of culture, but it's a matter of also evolvement of a country. And I see it happening, but still I see a lot of a fear to fail, a fear to take extra risk and try new products. So, and yes, more government support is also needed, because in Israel the Innovation Authority is really promoting innovation and entrepreneurship. And this is a government body.
See, in India, many of the larger corporates, they're slower in the innovation part.
Say it again?
In India, a lot of the corporates are slower in the innovation part. And the startups are good at the innovations. How does a similar thing compare in Israel? Would the corporates be open about innovation?
Very, very. As I mentioned to you, I work with IITMRP, and they have the innovation officer, and they take startups. Okay, so you have to be brave to embrace innovation. In the big companies in Israel, they have a small incubator, or they allow the company to be a beta site for Israeli startups. The Manufacturers Association of Israel have a startup unit. So if you're a startup, you go to this unit, and they send you to the big industries to try your technology. It's okay.
I have a sense that not many students go on to study in Israel. Is that the sense that you get at this? Why is that? That would be a better way to actually build a culture.
So I'll tell you, for example, my husband is the vice president of the Weizmann Institute. They love to get Indian students to come there to master's, PhD, postdoc. They thrive for Indian students. And this is an institute that speaks English, one of the 10 leading R&D centers in the world. They're just wanting Indian students to come. And they fund it. Tel Aviv University have an MBA program in English with special grant for women entrepreneurs. They are wanting Indian students to come. They always ask me to distribute these leaflets and invite Indian students. And many other universities are now having programs in English so that they can cater to the international students. This is the best if we can get more Indian students, not just in Australia or US or Europe. I invite Indian students to come to Israel. There are great programs for them. They can, from first hand, when they drink the water from the faucet, they drink innovation. They drink entrepreneurship. You'll feel it in the air when you come to Israel. One last story, you know. Even my hairdresser wrote an algorithm. I'm not kidding. My hairdresser one day told me while he was fixing my hair, you know what, there is a problem. The color 6 of L'Oreal or Revlon promises brown color, okay? But if you're a blonde and you take number 6, it will not end up the color of a brunette putting the 6th color, right? There should be some algorithm that matches the end color that you want with the existing color that you have and the number of the hair color. So he sat with a friend that knows some computers, and they developed an algorithm. What is your beginning color, what end color, what number of Revlon color you should take, and which oxygen percentage, 3, 6, 9, you have to add to this mixture. And we registered a patent about it. So even a hairdresser that didn't go to university, but definitely can do in Excel, are entrepreneurs. And it's all over. Even my next door neighbor, which is a teacher, has now an idea that we're going to sell to 3M. So it is contagious. So if you come to Israel, maybe you'll get, not corona, but you'll get some entrepreneurship. Yes. First, you can use a lot of databases of innovation. Second, in all the academia, you have database that you log in. You said you want a patent in carbon, in nanocarbon tubes, in any subject, okay? And you can source technology for the academia. A lot of incubators are around that you can come. There is an incubator for e-mobility, for pharma, for clean tech, for water. Come and look for yourself. My take is on this is come for a week. I promise you, you'll find something to collaborate on. And if you come through the TiE chapter trip, then definitely. Yes.
Tailored made for Chennai?
No, no.
Only 2 Chennai made Indian guys over there.
I apologize.
No, I'm just joking.
Apologize. That's the first time I give a talk in Chennai, and
No. There are a few of us who are interested in kind of visiting some of the incubators. The last time we were there, I actually met Technion University.
Okay.
Visited the incubator there. So what would you suggest is the best way to
how to?
just get connected with the incubator?
Yes. I mean, you can approach, of course, me, my chamber. You can approach the Innovation Authority. They have an India desk. You can approach the Israeli consulate in Bangalore, which is in charge of Chennai. You can approach the Indian embassy in Tel Aviv. You have a lot of access to the market. You can just log into the internet, look for databases of innovation in Israel, and you'll get plenty. Yes. Yes, so you have the DLD festival. It's usually September or October. This year it will be mid-October. You have Cyber Week or Cybertech Week. There are 2 weeks. If you're in the agriculture, you have the Agritech every few years or a few other agro. I can share it with you. Yeah, there is Biotech if you're into water, and the clean tech. There are exhibitions, which is a good idea to come during those exhibitions because you really meet everyone in a very short time. So yeah, that's a good idea.
Just to add on to the question which came, for some history buffs like us, who also love the history of Israel formation, also the technology which Israel has innovated. Many of us are familiar with these, but some of the things which you said today about what has been going on with India in the last few years, we are not familiar. So, like, probably if we could get a push of that information, I know we could go to these various organizations to find out what's happening there, like what you mentioned. there some way by which we could get the regular feed of information? Because we have various ideas, we need help on the R&D. Is there some way to connect with
Like a newsletter can
So I can definitely talk to TiE Chennai here and do a feed of information.
some feed
And
would be great.
my coming here means that I want to have more relations with TiE Chennai, and definitely we can discuss it and get more information and vice versa.
Sure.
Okay? I was asked where we can collaborate. I mean, the fact that this is a hub for IT and mobility, this is two major things that Israel and India can collaborate, because mobility is a huge thing now in Israel. And here, it's heaven for everyone. I mean, you have access to the entire world just in this small stretch. This is a big advantage that Israelis still don't understand, and I intend to do in the near future.
We can take one final question and then
So-
I have a question. See, there are a lot of startup companies and new technologies that we can take on this way. And as you pointed out in our website, that through India they want to help countries. There's a challenge. The challenge is that suppose you can never go and visit Australia at a time. And after that we never get an entry into the help countries.
So it's, let me help you with that. India today is offering special passport for Israel, okay? In the passport office, you ask for passport to Israel. You stamp this passport only, and your regular passport doesn't show your history, okay? So it's possible. Someone who are thinking about it, all my business friends come with a Israel passport. The problem, it's only 1 year, so every time you have to renew it, but come for the first time, then we'll talk.
In US actually there are some regulations. Even though you have product made in say some Mexico, but the component of that product is from China, they will go for a low price. There is some regulations in US. In Gulf actually they don't have like that. For example, maybe the product made in India, but the component of that product may be from USA. Do they have any process to identify that?
So I'm not that familiar, but I know for a fact that many Israeli companies that want to reach the Gulf countries come through India. I don't know what is the percentage of components. It might be that everything is also manufactured in India with specification and design from Israel, and maybe some smaller component that comes from Israel. It's doable. Use it. I'll take another question in the break.
Add a
So,
small point to that. I think a lot of Arab companies want those products.
by the way,
Yeah,
exactly.
That's the truth. It's very politically incorrect to do that. So if you find any method, even if it is like 0.5% value addition, they will take it.
Thanks for your time. Thanks for listening to me.